Again, welcome everyone. This is a conference that CJ and Dr. Seidel, Dr. Knight, Eric, several others, it was started, just like all good ideas when we were sitting around having a beverage of choice and we started scratching on a bar napkin. How many of you have been there? Those are really good ideas. And again, we wanted to build on the last conference here, the Ranching in the West, and kind of take it to that next level and bring in the new challenges that are out there that we have. And so that's where the idea for all of this, and we'll get to all the thanks and everything else, but we want to thank you for coming. We want to thank you for spending the time. We know that some of the information that we're going to give over the next day and a half is basically going to be preaching to the choir, but at the same time, some of the information we want you to think about. And then as you have those conversations, as you have put information out on your own blogs, or your own social media, or all of that, you'll reference back to the information that was presented today. I do want to thank, there's several sponsors that helped put this together and made this possible. Western SARE, Dr. Lee Summers, you're here. Bill Nobles, you're here. Thank you to SARE for helping us put this on. Of course, Colorado State University, the facility, and I know that you all had to weave your way to get here, but what an awesome facility. So thank you, Dr. Craig Broody, for Colorado State University, as well as the Ag Sciences Extension, the Center for Collaborative Conservation, and the Department of Forest and Rangeland Health Stewardship. CCA, Colorado Cattlemen's, was instrumental in helping with this. World Wildlife Federation, the Murr Ranch Group, Colorado County Agents Association, and the Colorado Cattlemen's Ag Land Trust, and Homestead Natural Meats. So again, we want to thank all the sponsors, and you'll hear their names throughout, because without that we couldn't do it. Again, this was done with a group that put all of this together, and we'll introduce them as we go on. But the most important thing is we want you to listen and think about the ideas that are presented. Think about the conversations when you have the break. We're going to throw out a lot of information. When we think about a ranching in a West that works, many of you went to the Society for Range Management when we had that national meeting in Denver, and the theme for that was working landscapes. Because too often when we think about working landscapes or ranching in a West that works, it's almost as if we could just keep ag at that half mile away from us and still have all that green and all of that good, then it would be better for everyone. But as we go through the next day and a half, you're going to see not only from the water standpoint, the wildlife standpoint, the economic standpoint, that the ag and the active management and all of that is so critical. And ag knows, and the ranching industry and the sheep industry and all of that, they know that they've been doing it right, and they know all of the attributes that they've been providing. They just have done a very poor job. We have done a very poor job of conveying that message. We've done a very poor job of that. And unfortunately, right now in the headline news, we see another individual telling our story. And that's not a good thing. And that individual is down in Nevada telling our story. And that's not a good thing for our industry. And at the same time, we have the increased litigation. Litigation has become a tool of choice to stop everything and to remove animals from the landscape. And we have the research that backs up the litigation, and that's not a good thing. And so we're going to talk about research. We're here at Colorado State University, and we have many students from the University of Wyoming. Research is an amazing tool, and it should continue, and it should be funded. But there are limitations to what research can do when we talk about a working landscape. We talk about natural systems working. We always claim that we want to use sound science. We've all heard that term. And I always challenge people, you all want sound science, but you want to define the sound science because you want to say the science that sounds like the science I want to believe in. Right? We cherry pick the science that we want. So we're here, and again, this is the great thing about universities. You have the time, you have the ability to sit there and discuss, and the ability to look at the big picture when we think about the science. There's a limitation when we have to have things, papers and research peer-reviewed. It has to meet that standard of showing a statistical difference. And here's where we run into the problem. To show a statistical difference on a landscape level, we have to be able to control variables, right? The majority of the room are in academics. Would I be correct, Dr. Knight? How do you control variables when you're on that large landscape and still show that statistical difference? It's very difficult to actually be able to show a statistical difference. So what do? Then we start saying, okay, if we just have the variables extreme enough, then the statistics can pick up the differences. But extreme variables don't reflect what occurs on the landscape. Case in point, livestock grazing and sage grouse. How many times have we seen in the popular press that the livestock grazing is one of the contributing factors to the decline of the greater and Gunnison sage grouse? Now there is coffee out front if we're a little foggy still. And I know the students from Laramie are like, woohoo, Fort Collins. Okay? Let me reiterate, for those of you that are here in Fort Collins, and I know I'm from the western slope of Colorado, so I'll talk slower for you. How many times have we read in the popular press that livestock grazing is a contributing factor to the decline of the greater and the Gunnison sage grouse? How many have read that? Yeah. Now, ask the next question, where's the science? The science is based on about 3 articles, one from the University of Wyoming, one out of Idaho. Then you go to those studies and you start looking in detail at those studies. With the exception of one study, you start looking at them and it's really bad livestock grazing, which we don't do on the majority of the landscape anymore, compared to no livestock grazing, so that the statistical difference can pick it up and we can get the paper peer reviewed. So why are we surprised in the conclusion when it says livestock grazing contributes to the decline of the vigor and the production of plants and therefore the decline of the greater sage grouse? But it doesn't reflect the actual grazing that occurs on the landscape. That's the trouble with a lot of academic papers and research. Now, we need that research. Please don't take it away that I don't think we need the research. We do. But what I want you to do is challenge you is to go back and read the research papers. Does it even fit? Does it match? But of course, in the cut and paste world, it's just too easy to say, Holleran et al., University of Wyoming, here's what it says, because it's cut and paste. Again, part of our job today and tomorrow is just to challenge you to think. And one of the challenges that we want to put out there is make sure that you read the source and look at the source of the academic work and say, does it fit? Okay? So again, ranching in a West that works. If we just, look at this on the big level, here's kind of the feel-good thing to start the conversation. And this is our place, and I'm proud of our place. And I'm just going to let these go through there. I don't even have text on there because, too many times then, especially in the academic world, then. And shoot, I got my master's here at Colorado State University. I worked for Colorado State University Extension for 25 years Academic is very important. We utilize that research, but what we just want to convey is make sure you look and see if the research applies to what you're reading and what you're looking at. Okay? And again, are we doing it right? We're doing it right. We just have to say it right and be able to convey our message. Again, when we think about the large landscapes and we think about what wildlife need and what our economies need and how all that plays together, we're just now starting to realize it's the active management that is what we need also. Case in point, everybody know where Aspen is? Okay, the home of the beautiful people, the home of the people that do it right. You know, they are so good, they will charge you for a plastic bag. And several other communities are doing that as well. In my current job, I really like plastic bags in the landfill. They degrade very fast, and I'm convinced, reading the new technology, that there will be fuel source coming out of landfills. So bring your plastic bags to Delta County. We like them. The technology is always evolving. Back to Aspen. In the 1990s, in Aspen, the large ranches started going away, and even the small ranches started going away. And they were replaced by large landscapes. Now, were those large landscapes still green? Absolutely. Were those large landscapes still providing wildlife habitat? Yes. Were they still providing open space? Absolutely. But they forgot one thing. They forgot the water. And in about 5 to 7 years, the subdivisions below the large landscapes that were still open and still green, did not have their domestic water supply. Their wells were not being recharged. What's the matter? It must be those evil ranchers. They're taking all the water. But those landscapes weren't being managed. They were still green. There was water still running across them to a point, just enough to keep them green, not enough that the grass grew very high. And the subdivisions below and the town of Basalt were not having their domestic water recharged or their wells, because those ranches above did not have the active management to move that water completely across those landscapes to recharge the water for the domestic. This was proven by a hydrology study out of a firm out of Utah. And they showed that it was that active management on those large landscapes to effectively move that water that was providing that recharge, that was providing that in-stream flow, that was providing that return flow. It was the active management. Someone on the ground, not just enough to keep it green. So think about how we monitor now. We monitor from a drone, right? Or we monitor on the greenness. We've got to be careful that we don't allow that to be the only factor that we look at, because the Aspen large landscapes would have passed the green test, but they didn't pass the water test. You're going to hear Dr. Knight talk about a study here right close to home where they evaluated the irrigation systems and were able to show that 92% of the wetlands in this study area came from irrigation, active management. Management that works across a large landscape and provides that return flow and provides that recharge. So again, here is the next step of the last conference. It's the water. It's the water, and it's that return flow. It's very critical, and it's something that we don't think a lot of. Okay, so now we switch gears. Now we have to be efficient in our irrigation. We have to have the side rolls and the center pivots and all of that, because that's efficient. Now let's logically think through this. What's going to happen to that if we don't have that water moving across the landscape to provide the recharge, to provide the return flow. Okay, those are the kinds of conversations we want you to think about.